Hi, this video is for parents with students who are in the Upper Logic program at Aletheia Christian Academy, and that is going to be roughly 7th to 8th grade. I'm making a video just to show you the different books that they'll need for each of their classes. Now, we do have a book list on our website, but I know it can kind of be confusing when maybe it's your first year with a student in Upper Logic, or maybe it's your first year entirely at Aletheia Christian Academy. So I just wanted to walk through each of the classes. I will start by saying that the one class that we do not offer anything in at ACA for the Upper Logic level is math, and so you will need to supplement with your own math curriculum at home. And there's lots of companies that you can use, and everybody has different feelings about what is best. So usually each program will have a test that you can take as well to see what level your student might be at. For history, which is offered at Aletheia, we will be using Story of the World Volume 4, and if you have students that are in the younger program, you will have noticed that we're also using this in the younger program. It is a little bit different in the Upper Logic. I do recommend that students have a copy of this textbook. If you have a younger students, I said you could get the audio version if you wanted it and they could listen to it, but for what the students are doing in history class and the discussions that we hope they are able to have, a textbook would be great, and they should bring that textbook to class. So the student, it's not a student really book, it's just like a textbook, Story of the World. And they'll also need a portfolio. And I got this last year at the homeschool sale that they're actually having this Saturday at the church for a quarter. It was just like a nature sketchbook. It could be any kind of sketchbook. You just don't want it to have lined paper. And then your child will make like a portfolio, like here's a sample, in which they take some of the information that they've read and make kind of a page that they can present to class with maybe an original drawing or a map that they drew. They can print things out. My daughter enjoyed writing and drawing, and so she didn't do any printouts, but she did some different things kind of just to make it more cemented in their mind what they were reading. It's a way of taking information and then doing something with it. So that's part of the history class, is those two things. And then the third item that they're going to need for history is Our Constitution Rocks, and I think on the book list it says that's a typo. It's Our Constitution Rocks, and they'll need a book, and they'll need to bring it to class, and they'll get a schedule of when they're reading what. But that is for history class. For geography, it's optional because some students did this last year, and so there will be a syllabus entry telling you when to do it, but if you opt into it, they will be drawing the world. You shouldn't need to get any curriculum for that. You might want to invest maybe in some tracing paper or some drawing paper, or we just use printing paper from home. And then they'll be given directions on that, and they'll be using Drawing the World from the Heart, and they shouldn't need to purchase that curriculum themselves, as there will be an opportunity in class to go over that. And they will need Window on the World for their geography class, which is here. Well, they'll be talking about different cultures, and if you've been to an information meeting, then you got the spiel on this, but this is a great resource to have even as a family. So Window on the World. I would get the newest edition just because so many things change, and if you get an older edition, it's going to have some outdated information. Then for their composition class, they're going to be using Bible-based writing lessons, and they just need the student book. If this is your first year using IEW and you're nervous about it, and you want to feel more confident, then they have a teacher's manual, which I have used in the past and have appreciated. And so it's really up to you what your comfort level is as a parent. So they have the student book, and then they also have the teacher's book for Bible-based writing lessons, and that's from IEW. For the grammar part of that class, they'll be using Grammar for the Well-Trained Mind. And this is, I heard from some people, was a little complicated on what you needed to get. So let me just go over that. This is a 4-year program. It's the same manual you use every year for 4 years. You can see it says year 1 through 4 down there. So you would only buy this one time. We're starting it with our lower logic, and then we finish it in our upper logic. But if this is your first year, it's not a problem. You can start here. It starts at the very beginning and works its way through. The difference each year is the workbooks that you use. And again, it doesn't really matter what color you go with. They're all the same level, but they just have different colors, so you know you've worked through them. There's different exercises. And so this is the purple workbook, which is what we have slated for this year. And then for people like me, this is an absolute must. It's the key to the workbook. And so the grammar lessons, you might be thinking we're going to do grammar in our foreign language, or we have our own grammar program we like, or my student has done grammar so much they don't need to do it at home. And that's up to you. What will happen in class is it will be a small point of class. They'll work through one day of the essays, and it's scripted. One day of the exercises, it's scripted. They'll work through some practice problems, and then that's it. If you're doing this at home, then you will work through the rest. I believe it's 4 days total, so the other 3 days at home. Like I said, it's scripted, and then you'll do choose what parts of the workbook you want to do. You don't have to do all of it. It's a lot, and I don't even recommend that you do every exercise, but you'll just determine what exercises you want your student to do if you're going to continue that at home. If you're not, they just get one little grammar lesson each composition class, and it can be fine. It can stand on its own. The other part of that class, which will be a smaller part in class, is the literature component. Once we have 5 books that we've picked out, and then we'll do some short stories as well, but they will not be writing on these books, but they will have one class discussion for each book, and it's throughout the year. And so we have The Yearling, which is a pretty big book, and so actually I've already started my daughter reading this one. And that might be something if you have a reader who struggles, or maybe just because this is such a big book. I mean, the writing isn't tiny, so it's not like it's Crime and Punishment or something, but it is a big book. Johnny Tremain, which isn't quite as big, although I think the writing is maybe a little bit smaller in this one. This is a nice little book. Attack Everlasting. Then this one, I think we're going to do. It's not on the book list. Call of the Wild. We might switch it out with a different one, but it would be later in the year. So if you want to hold off on getting this one, you can. I was just talking to some people trying to make sure we get a well-rounded literature selection, and so this is a definite possibility. Call of the Wild, and then we'll do some short stories that they do not need to buy. Oh, and I forgot my favorite book that they're reading this year, which is Anne of Green Gables. This one also, that's kind of tiny, is bigger. So they'll have roughly like 3 to 5 weeks to read each of these books. So kind of if you don't think that's enough time, like that's a tiny one, you can start reading some of these this summer. But all that they're going to do with that literature is have a class discussion on it. We're trying to put together some notebooks where they can fill out the plot and the characters and kind of talk about that. That's just going to be for a great book discussion. That's what the literature is in Upper Logic. All right, so that's that class. Moving along to science. So we are using this book, Science in the Atomic Age, for our Upper Logic science. And I only have this book, but I reached out to our science instructor, and she said that the other stuff that goes with it, they have some like tests and some and a key that is recommended. She's recommending it, so you can test your student and see where they are if you're interested in doing that. In class, they'll be doing a lot of hands-on experiments and kind of explaining what they're reading in here. She won't be doing any testing. So if you want to do that, you can purchase those and do those at home. But this is the book. It's a pretty big book. But I'm excited about this. That's science. And then they're doing, for logic, we're doing the Art of Argument. And this is the student book and the teacher book. And again, it's just your comfort level. You definitely need the student book. You'll be working through that in class and reading it at home. And if you are confused by logic, if you've never taken it, if you want extra help, the teacher book is super handy. And that gives you the key for the tests. That class will also use a book that I do not have yet called The Argument Builder. And again, I would assume it's the same as The Art of Argument, where you might want the teacher edition if you are not familiar with it. And from there, that's where they're going to build their debates that they'll be doing. So those books for logic. And then our last class, the Gospel Primer, they'll be using this book and having kind of just more like we did for literature, except it meets every week. And the sections are small. They'll just be discussing what they read. So from here, it's here to here would be 1 week. They'd be talking about that. And that one is the sufficiency in the gospel. So some deep, deep fun stuff. But this is a short class at the end of the day, a gospel primer. and they do need this book. And it is by Milton Vincent. I don't know if you can see that. It's probably backwards, but so those are the books that they need. If you have any questions or you're confused about how class is set up, well, I guess I didn't mention that we do have a fine arts program. We're finalizing that. If you have talent, reach out to Sarah because she's putting that together, some fine arts talent. But you don't need to provide anything. Your supply fee covers the cost for that class. But if you have any questions, you can let me know and I'd be happy to answer them. But I'm looking forward to next year and all of these Upper Logic students.